Take a look at this video. It's new, shows Ukrainian forces, well, destroying a Russian tank. This, as sources tell CNN, that the Biden administration will provide Ukraine with another weapon in its arsenal, what are known as switchblade drones. That's a picture there, also known as suicide drones. In other words, they can fly into a target and destroy it. While we don't know which model Ukraine will get, the largest is capable of hitting targets some 20 miles away. One of an array of weapons that the U.S. and its NATO partners are now sending in. My next guest, though, says more needs to be done by the U.S. and NATO, and now. With me now, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger from Illinois. Congressman, thanks for taking the time this morning.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.
So you have been forward-leaning on the support that the U.S. and NATO have to offer, including keeping open the possibility of a no-fly zone. They have now and have sent in a host of air defense systems, including the S-300, which is high altitude. And I spoke with your colleague, Mike McCall, yesterday, who said that that combination of things could allow Ukraine to, in effect, establish something close to its own no-fly zone. And I wonder if you agree with that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, look, I think we can always find things, and I do, that I disagree with the administration on in areas where I think they should do something different or speak differently about it. But there is no doubt this is very forward-leaning, and short of a no-fly zone, giving Ukraine all the tools they can to defend. I think the key is to remember this. A lot of the times people think about like the airspace in Ukraine contested as a given thing. Russia has no right to close Ukraine's airspace. Ukraine has every right to defend their airspace, even to invite in allies, which is why I'm supportive of a no-fly zone. But that said, I think we're doing the next best thing. I think the idea, too, of being able to fly in humanitarian aid, and it's not going to war with the Russians. It's simply saying Ukraine has a right as the owner of this airspace to receive aid. So, look, there's more, of course, I think we should do. But yesterday's aid package was a significant step, I think.
You raise a subtle point there about the difference between a humanitarian no-fly zone where, in effect, the U.S., NATO would put the onus on Russia attacking, right? Fly the aid in, say this is Ukrainian airspace, as opposed to, in effect, pick a fight, as it were, between NATO and Russian jets in the air and say, we're going to shoot you down if you're in the air. That's a difference, and I wonder if you think that is a risk worth taking and the U.S. and NATO can take, in effect, call Russia's bluff.
So, look, I'm a believer that Russia will continue to advance until we present a brick wall. One of my criticisms of the Biden administration has been repeatedly saying what we're unwilling to do. And, as you know very well, Jim, how foreign policy works, to be able to use diplomacy against an adversary, in many cases, that takes a military backstop. And so I think if you said, look, Ukraine has a right to its airspace, we're going to deliver not even just humanitarian supplies, even if we were going to deliver military supplies, the point is they have every right to protected skies. And we could say simply, here's the path we're flying, and it's on Russia if they challenge us. And I'm just a believer that Russia is going to escalate, whether it's chemical weapons, God forbid, tactical nukes, which is not strategic nukes. They're going to escalate anyway if Ukraine beats them versus, somehow there's only they'll fight NATO, I guess.
And by the way, we should note that some of the weapons they're already using can kill arguably just as many people as, say, a chemical weapons attack, and they're using them deliberately on civilian targets. But do you believe if Russia were to take that qualitative step of, say, using phosphorus bombs as they've used in Syria before, that the U.S. and NATO should directly, under those circumstances, engage Moscow?
100%. It's the only way to stop it from happening. I mean, look, if Vladimir Putin is failing at his objective in Ukraine, his backup goal is to destroy and kill everybody, basically clear out the country, which is what you're seeing. His army is stalled, but they have plenty of shells to use to destroy and kill humans, including children, including in a theater, including who are buried today, by the way. So if we don't put a red line down that says, look, it's sad that we say, okay, we're going to tolerate, shelling, but you have to pick somewhere. If we put a red line down and say, the use of anything like white phosphorus or chemical weapons, or of course a tactical nuclear weapon, that is a red line, and we will have to engage you directly. That makes them using that stuff far, far less likely. Right now, I fear the only people we're deterring is ourselves.
Let me ask you this. As you have heard publicly, the former president, as well as his allies, say that somehow, had he still been president, Putin would not have dared to attack this, despite the fact that, as you well know, and by the way, you've said you regret your vote now against impeaching Trump for withholding military aid from Ukraine in 2019. What's your reaction to that argument?
Look, he was an awful president, and he was awful on this issue. I mean, yeah, there is something to the fact that, nobody knew what Donald Trump was going to do, but that was just because he didn't know what he was going to do. But that was not a deterrent to Putin. Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un, Xi of China were getting everything they wanted with Donald Trump. And I think, as John Bolton has said, Vladimir Putin was waiting until Donald Trump was reelected and then pulled us out of NATO for this attack. And of course, with Joe Biden, he didn't have that opportunity. Look, if anybody tries to look back and say that somehow Donald Trump would have been better at this, it is just utter garbage. And I think anybody in their right mind can't truly believe that. And I think it's time to start telling people the truth. You can be a Republican, you can dislike Joe Biden, but don't pretend like Donald Trump was any good.
Final question, if I can. You are among the names mentioned who might challenge him for the nomination in 2024 should he decide to run. It looks more and more like he will, along with Liz Cheney, perhaps Mike Pence. Do you believe there will be a competitive GOP primary, that you will get the opportunity to do so? We saw steps in 2020 where the GOP closed the path to challenges. Do you believe that'll happen again, or will you get a shot?
Well, I don't know if I'm interested in it. It's not something I'm pursuing. I want our party to be better. I want this country to be better. In terms of, I think somebody will carry the torch of what I call actually pro-American republicanism. I don't know who that necessarily will be. I'm focusing on the country first stuff. There's a lot of desire out there for something different. But look, if Donald Trump gets the Republican nomination, there are many of us that will move heaven and earth to ensure he doesn't win. I think that's the most important thing. He cannot be president again.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thanks for joining us this morning.
You bet. See ya.